Hey, Mike here. I just wanted to let you know that you can listen to Dark Poutine early and ad-free on Amazon Music, included with Prime. Welcome back to Dark Poutine. I am Mike Brown.
And I'm his sidekick, Matthew Stockton.
You're not a sidekick, Matthew.
I'm the Ed McMahon of true crime.
You're not the Ed McMahon to my Johnny Carson. There's no way. No. And I don't see myself as Johnny Carson. I'm just a dude.
I was just going to say, did you compare yourself to the great Johnny Carson?
No. If you're Ed McMahon, that's who that would make me.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah,
And I kind of am Ed McMahon, though, because there wasn't a lot of talent there. He just...
I love Ed McMahon. He was a nice fella.
Yeah, me too.
The views, information, and opinions expressed during the Dark Poutine podcast are solely those of the producer and do not necessarily represent those of Curious Cast, its affiliate, Global News, nor their parent company, Chorus Entertainment.
Dark Poutine is not for the faint of heart or squeamish. Listener discretion is strongly advised. We're not experts on the topics we present, nor are we journalists. We're two ordinary Canadian schmucks chatting about crime and the dark side of history. Let's get to it. Put on your toque, grab yourself a double-double and a Nanaimo bar. It's time to scarf down some Dark Poutine.
You are responsible for obtaining and maintaining at your own cost all equipment needed to listen to Dark Poutine. Dark Poutine can be addictive. Side effects may include, but not be limited to, pausing and questioning the system, elevated heart rate, pondering humanity, odd looks from colleagues as you laugh out loud at work, family members not into true crime worrying about you. Positive side effects may include some perspectives and opinions that you disagree with, as well as some wokeness and empathy. If you don't think Dark Poutine is for you, consult your doctor immediately.
On the evening of July 18, 1977, 5 local teenagers were relaxing and drinking and listening to music at Ferry Island Park on the banks of the Fraser River just east of Chilliwack. It was a beautiful summer night. At 9:40 p.m., a man appeared from the underbrush armed with a rifle and without a word began shooting. 4 of the teens were killed. Brothers from Rosedale, Jan Christiaan Den Hertog, 16, and Evert Den Hertog, 19, Egbert Bert Menger, 19 of Clearbrook, and Rosedale resident Leola Corrinne Guliker, 16. The killer sped off in Evert Den Hertog's truck while the only survivor, 15-year-old Adrian Menger, Egbert's younger brother, fled and sought help. The terrified community, stunned by the senseless slayings, began burying their dead while police sought a killer. More than a month later, they had their man, 23-year-old Walter Murray Madsen of Chilliwack, BC. After shooting the teens, Madson had dumped all 4 victims into the Fraser, hoping the water would hide evidence of his horrific crime. Madsen's bizarre motives for the shootings and further plans were revealed at his trial in 1978. Leola Guliker's body was not found until 9 months after the shooting, just days after Madsen was sentenced to life in prison for her killing and the 3 others. This is Dark Poutine episode 333, summer cut short, the 1977 Rosedale murders. All the victims in this story come from hard-working, salt-of-the-earth Dutch families. After World War II, many Dutch people sought a new beginning in Canada as their homeland had been left in ruins by years of war. One of those who came to Canada then was my biological maternal grandmother, Mary Ann Wolfe, a war bride to a Canadian soldier, Royce Ring, who'd served in the Canadian Black Watch during the war. They settled in Nova Scotia, Royce's home province, and soon my birth mom, Diane, came along. Among the Dutch immigrants arriving in British Columbia in the late 1940s were several families who deeply valued their Reformed faith but found no church that reflected their beliefs. With a strong desire to create a place of worship for themselves and future generations, 5 families began meeting in fellowship in 1949, laying the foundation for what would become the Bethel, Netherlands Reformed Congregation in Chilliwack.
So, Mike, I have Dutch family and come from a community with lots of Dutch people.
Yep.
And I'm remembering me going to the Dutch Reformed Church in Strathroy for a thing called Boys Alive.
Oh, wow. What was that, like a gay meetup, Matthew?
No. And that's horrible. We did stuff like read the Bible and then played dodgeball.
Oh, okay. So
Like,
yeah.
Seriously. And Mr. Postma, Moose.
Yes.
Actually, if anyone knows who Robert Postma is, who lives up in the Yukon, he's a nature photographer. He's been on stamps. He's a friend of mine. He is the kid that lived across the street from me. It was his dad. We nicknamed him Moose.
Oh, nice.
Used to run Boys Alive just to give the boys in the small town stuff to do on, I can't remember what night of the week it was. And a little bit of like hurling a ball at each other's face at high velocity and then reading the Bible.
Yeah. I grew up in the United Church, and we had a thing called Seed Time, was
Okay.
for young folks, and that's what
Yeah.
I went to. And
Yeah.
it was good. I made a lot of friends there who are still my friends.
I have a real affinity for Dutch Canadians, and I don't like painting like one group of people positively or negatively, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's differences. But from my experience, the Dutch community where I'm from were hardworking, really community-minded people,
Yep.
right? And my Dutch friends also knew how to throw a wicked party. So
There you go.
yeah.
As the small group of Dutch families around Chilliwack grew, so did their needs. By 1950, they had secured a location in Pumptown, Sardis, and even organized the first baptismal service, thanks to the efforts of a visiting minister from Iowa. The following year, they officially purchased the Pumptown building for $1,000, a significant achievement made possible by the collective generosity of the congregation. The community continued to expand, particularly after the devastating 1953 floods in the Netherlands, which prompted another wave of Dutch immigrants to settle in BC. By 1954, the growing congregation required a larger space, leading to the construction of a new church building on Yates Avenue in Chilliwack. In 1957, Elder M. Romain became the church's first official pastor, serving until his illness in 1970. After his passing, the congregation welcomed Reverend A. W. Verhoef in 1972, who faithfully led the church until 1989. During his tenure, Reverend Verhoef had a strong concern for the congregation's youth, which led to the establishment of Timothy Christian School in 1975, ensuring that the teachings of Scripture would be passed on to the next generation. Thus, the Netherlands Reformed congregation in Chilliwack grew from a small group of devoted believers into a thriving community, continually guided by faith and desire to preserve its religious heritage. One of the families making up the congregation of the Netherlands Reformed Church in Chilliwack was the Den Hertogs. Jenneke Everdina, Jenny, born De Bruin, and Barend, Bernie Den Hertog, moved to Canada from Utrecht, Netherlands in May of 1962, coming to Chilliwack. They owned and ran a chicken farm. When the family arrived, they already had 5 children: Judy, Evert, Gail, Janie, and Johnny. While their family grew, son Bert was the first to be born in Canada, later followed by more daughters: Renee, Hilda, Charmaine, Joanne, Christina, Evelyn, and finally Jenny. In the end, there was a baker's dozen, 13 Den Hertog kids in all. Another of the Netherlands Reformed Church families was the Menger family. After his schooling in the Netherlands, Walter Bob Menger worked for Shell Oil for more than 20 years, working his way up from messenger boy to system analyst. He and his wife Jana and their children Bert, Lenny, and Ed came to Canada in 1969. Bob went to work for BC Tel, and for the next 9 years, until just after Bert's murder, he designed computer systems for the growing telecom. John Guliker, who had emigrated to Lethbridge from Holland in 1951, moved to Chilliwack in 1955. He and his wife Corrie, also a Dutch immigrant who'd moved to Canada around the same time as the Guliker family, had 3 children and owned and ran a dairy farm. Leola was the eldest, and her sister Marilyn was a year younger. Son Gerald came 2 years after Marilyn, and John was a year younger than Gerald. Although the Guliker family did not attend the same churches, the Den Hertog and Menger families, they participated in the Rosedale Reformed congregation in North America. Leola sometimes attended services at the family's local church in the morning and the Den Hertog's church in the evening. It was through the church that Leola Guliker and Ed Den Hertog first became acquainted and soon fell in love. All the kids involved in this story were average youths with the prospect of full and productive lives ahead of them. Before leaving his education to work on his dad's chicken farm, John Den Hertog had been a 9th grade student at Rosedale Junior Secondary School. Alan Legg, his social studies teacher for 2 years, said John was not particularly studious or athletic, but he remembered him always smiling and having a pleasant demeanor.
I'm going to cut in here because you're going to talk more about some of the other kids. And,
Yeah.
This episode is so terrible. And I don't know why, Mike, but whenever you send me a script and I open it up,
Yeah.
I'm hoping for an easy episode.
This one is not.
And it's just, I'm like, Matthew, we're not in a genre where anything's going to be easy,
Yeah, sometimes I want to remind you of that because you're like, oh, I don't want to talk about that. But it's like, that's what we do. This is what we do.
Like, Mike, don't do this to me. Can we do something about, I don't know, something else? But so when I saw today's script and I opened it, I was like, oh no, oh no. Because this is one of them, I have to say here.
Yeah.
Now, I'm talking and joking around, but this one is particularly hard. All these kids, this is a tough one.
Just cut down for a weird, bizarre reason.
Yeah. And so thank you again for giving me a hard one, Mike.
Alan Legg had also taught Leola Guliker at the same school. He said she too was an average student, a nice, pleasant girl who didn't seem to have any problems at all. Leola left school in 1976 to work on her father's farm and began planning her future with Ed Den Hertog, who also dropped out of school to work for his dad. Ed and Leola were looking forward to adulthood and were talking about marriage and a family. The Menger boys were friends of the Den Hertogs. Before their fateful night together at Ferry Island Park, Leola had not known either of them. 15-year-old Ed Menger was still in junior high school, and older brother Bert had just completed an accounting course at Fraser Valley College in Abbotsford after graduating from high school. In the lead-up to her murder, Leola spent time with her folks working on the farm, spending as much time as she could with Ed Den Hertog, and relaxing in the evening at the family home. Just a day before she went missing, Leola's mom recalled her daughter speaking of the future. "Mom," she said, "next week we'll have 2 anniversaries to celebrate, your birthday and the day I met Ed." Corey's birthday is July 24th, and it would have been a year since Leola and Ed had met. John and Corey were off to Quesnel the next day for a business trip and a summer getaway. Corey had no idea when they pulled out of their driveway for the trip into BC's interior how meaningful that sentimental conversation with Leola had been and how it would echo painfully forever afterward. The evening of July 18th, 1977, was just another summer night for the 5 friends. The group drove to the Ferry Island recreation area in Ed Den Hertog's distinctive pickup truck. According to the province, quote, "The truck, a 1976 black over green Ford, was decked out with cartoons of Yosemite Sam holding 2 pistols and saying, 'Back off,' and a 'Keep on trucking' sticker," end quote.
Or the Yosemite Sam.
Yeah.
But Mike, this was it, right? This is it, right? Mm-hmm. What you just said is it. This was just a day.
Yeah.
It was just a day for hanging out. None of them saw this coming.
How many times did you do this with your friends?
Exactly. And you're setting the scene of what was like so shocking because it was so senseless, right?
Yeah. At around 8:45 that evening, Ed parked near the riverbank at the south end of the Agassiz-Rosedale Bridge. It was an idyllic place to relax, drink the few beers and Mickey of rum that they had, and listen to music on the truck's tape deck while the sun went down. The group laughed, chatted, and drank, and it was not a big party by any means, just a chill get-together. At around 9 p.m., a car arrived carrying one of Leola's cousins and his friend. The two chatted with the group for about 20 minutes. They left, and the original group threw their empty beer bottles into the river, hurling rocks at them until they shattered and sank. The sun set at 9:05 p.m., but it was still light enough to see when a stranger armed with a rifle emerged from the underbrush nearby at 9:40. Ed Menger, the only survivor of the 5 young people attacked, later recounted what happened next. Ed Menger had just finished 2 beers and an ounce of rum and was chatting with Evert Den Hertog. He didn't see the stranger until after he heard the first deafening gunshot. At first he thought it was a shotgun blast, but realized later it was the crack of a hunting rifle, but at an extremely close range. Ed turned to see where the sound had come from and saw the man with the gun advancing toward the group. Ed Menger's fight, flight, freeze response went into full flight mode, and he ran to his left along the riverbank toward Ferry Island Road, and he hoped safety. The shooting continued behind him as he ran. As he did, he heard the shouts from his friends. Ed Menger made it up to the road and turned to get a glimpse of the gunman. He heard Evert Den Hertog yell twice, "Please don't shoot." Leola screamed too. Over around a minute, Ed heard between 6 and 7 gunshots.
I feel so much for Ed.
Yeah.
I imagine, I don't know, but he could have had what we call, what do you call it, survivor's guilt?
Of course.
Which really is, in a weird way, a form of self-victim blaming, right?
Yeah.
When you're really being unfair to yourself and not recognize that you were a victim in all of this as well, right?
Yeah.
And I really hope he got some help after this, but it was the 70s, so...
Yeah, I doubt it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. A fisherman, Alan Shepard, was leaving the park in his car when Ed Menger flagged him down in a panic. Ed screamed, "Someone is shooting and killing my friends." Shepard heard the shots too. Shepard could hear what he presumed was a female voice loudly pleading for her life. Alan Shepard drove Ed Menger to a farmhouse owned by the Barg family near the crime scene, where Ed called the police. Ed was standing outside waiting for the police when he saw 2 vehicles leaving the area where the shootings occurred. Ed was sure that the first one was Evert Den Hertog's pickup. The truck sped away. The RCMP members arrived between 5 and 7 minutes after Ed had called them, and after Ed quickly explained what had happened, the members drove Ed back to the crime scene. Sure enough, Evert Den Hertog's pickup truck, brother, and 3 friends were nowhere to be found. There was some blood and several bullet cartridges, but where was everybody? 4 people were gone, and so was the gunman. Ed later said to the Vancouver Sun, quote, "At first I hoped it was a joke. Even when he fired the first shot, paper filtered down through the air as though it was a blank. But later, when we found the cartridge, there was blood there. I knew something was awfully wrong." Police began searching for the 4 missing members of Ed Menger's party and sent out an APB on Evert Den Hertog's pickup, calling for roadblocks along the exits from Chilliwack to the Trans-Canada Highway west into Vancouver and east toward Hope. According to the Abbotsford News, Ed described the shooter as, quote, "a slim fellow with a slight build, average height of around 5'10", about 19 to 23 years of age, wearing a black and red checkered lumber shirt, a long thin nose, and squinted eyes," end quote. John Guliker later identified a piece of Leola's sweater which was found snagged on a tree and a broken piece of a puka shell from a necklace she'd been wearing. Other than the blood and several drag marks heading toward the Fraser River, there were no other signs of Leola and the 3 young men. Police presumed that whoever had shot the 4 had put them into the river or perhaps kidnapped 1 or more of them. Had the shooter acted alone, or did the second red Ford truck seen leaving the area after Ed's have something to do with the crime? The killer had slipped the roadblocks. In the early morning hours of the following day, a security guard discovered Ed Den Hertog's truck in the Pacific Center Parkade in Vancouver. Police towed it to a forensic facility where they found spent shells from a .30-06 hunting rifle, parts of a blue nylon tent, and they were able to lift 2 good fingerprints. Police divers began scouring the river downstream from the crime scene in the Fraser. The current was quick, around 16 kilometers per hour. A rope from the shore and police spotters protected the divers from becoming victims themselves in the fast-moving river. 2 days later, 60 meters down the river, just before noon, the divers made a grisly discovery: the bodies of Evert Ed Den Hertog and Ed Menger's older brother Bert. Dr. A.D. College, the coroner in Chilliwack, shared some preliminary findings with the province newspaper. It appeared that Ed Den Hertog was stabbed 6 times in the chest, which led to the speculation that he might have fought with his attacker. However, the fatal wound was likely the bullet wound that entered his right shoulder and traveled through his chest, and there was no visible exit wound. Interestingly, Ed's wristwatch, still on his arm but smashed, had stopped at 9:50 p.m. on July 18th. Dr. College reported that Bert Menger died from a bullet wound that entered his left armpit, passed through his chest, and exited through the right armpit, lodging in his upper right arm. Unlike Ed, Bert's body did not have any stab wounds. Ballistics evidence indicated that the shells found in the truck had come from the same rifle that had killed the 2 young men. The following Saturday, the block around the Netherlands Reformed Congregation Church on Yates Avenue was silent despite 800 mourners gathering to honor Ed Den Hertog and Bert Menger. The service, led by Reverend Verhoff, focused on the fragility of life and included prayers for the 2 missing teenagers, John Den Hertog and Leola Guliker. After the service, 400 people attended the burial at Oddfellows Cemetery, while RCMP officers quietly stood guard. Reverend Verhoff later shared that the uncertainty faced by grieving families, particularly the loss of future plans, is the most painful part of events like this one. No one could figure out why anyone would want to hurt these kids. Their families were well liked. The whole thing made no sense. What was the motive? Police surmised that maybe somebody was upset by the loud music the young people were playing. Locals avoided the once busy party spot like the plague, not wanting to be the next victims of a killer still on the loose.
You know, that really stuck out to me, of being really sad, of trying to surmise that it was because of loud music. It's the desperation of the community searching for a sensible answer for such a senseless situation.
Yeah.
Right? It's,
yep.
That search of why, right? Why? Why?
That's always the question, and thankfully, why isn't a determiner of not guilty or guilty?
No, but it's like other episodes we do where things lead up to it and you can see it leading up, but this was just why.
Completely senseless, yeah.
My word for this episode is why, right?
Yeah. On the 28th of July, a full 10 days after the shooting, around 200 meters downstream from the crime scene, floating in an eddy, was the body of John Den Hertog. Evidence showed that he too had died from gunshot wounds. Leola was still missing. 2 girls came forward claiming that they had been driving along Ferry Island Road around the time of the shootings and had pulled up behind, as close as 5 meters, what they thought was Ed Den Hertog's pickup truck. They said that the truck had 2 occupants. One, the driver, appeared to be a tall, thin man like the one described by Ed Menger, and in the passenger seat they said they saw what appeared to be a female. Was it Leola? Had the man kidnapped her? The sighting happened so fast it wasn't clear whether or not the girls actually saw anybody in the passenger seat, but as Leola was still missing, it couldn't be ruled out. Regardless, this information was released to the news media. Frank Lewis, owner of the Pacific 66 service station along the old No. 1 highway in Aldergrove, also spotted Ed Den Hertog's truck when it pulled in around 11 p.m., less than 2 hours after the shooting. Mr. Lewis got a good look at the lone occupant, who matched the description given by Ed Menger. Locals had also seen a man matching the shooter's description riding a 10-speed bike near the crime scene earlier on the afternoon before the shooting. They had thought it odd that they'd seen him enter the area, but he hadn't exited when the sun started setting. More after a quick break. And we are back. Matthew, thoughts so far?
I'm still on the why question, Mike. This is one of those stories, and Mike, I hate calling them stories. And I don't know what word I should use, because for the families of these victims, this is not a story; it's their life.
And I struggle with that too. I mean, there's a reason people want to hear it, and there's reasons I want to tell it.
Yeah,
it's important, I think, for people to hear this, to remember these 4 people who were killed for no good reason.
Yeah, and I just, with any episode we do, like, it's, story, people understand when I say story, but for me, the word story is too light for the families, and I just hope the families, when we use the word story, that I'm not degrading it at all,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I see it that way too, and that's why I want to treat their lives essentially, as carefully and respectfully as we can.
Yeah.
Two composite drawings of the suspect taken from Ed Menger's description and those of other witnesses were released to the public. The man was wearing a hat in one, and in another he's bareheaded. By August 22nd, the RCMP had eliminated 200 people and were investigating more leads and trying to track down other vehicles seen in the area on the night of the shooting. Inspector Les Holmes of the Vancouver RCMP remained tight-lipped about significant findings in the investigation, acknowledging that it could take years to solve. Staff Sergeant Arnie Nyland, who led the RCMP's Serious Crimes Unit in Vancouver, emphasized the importance of detailed records for continuity as the investigation progressed. Despite extensive efforts, including searches by RCMP divers, checks on parolees, and the development of a psychological profile, the police still knew little about the suspect in one of BC's biggest manhunts to that point. A reward of $25,000 was offered for information leading to a suspect's arrest. Tips flooded police phone lines, and investigators struggled mightily to keep up with their volume. Just under a week later, police got a call from a tipster who overheard a conversation that led them to their suspect, a 23-year-old unemployed laborer named Walter Murray Madsen. He lived in a basement suite at his parents' house at 330 Yale Road in downtown Chilliwack, just a few minutes' drive from the crime scene, and even closer to the RCMP detachment.
So this guy sounds like a real winner, Mike.
Yeah.
If you were 23 living in your parents' basement in the 1970s when houses cost $14 and 1 peppercorn, you weren't going far in life. Like, it's different now. The houses are sort of reached. But back then, this was not common.
No, it wasn't common no.
This guy is a total loser.
Unless you were working with your family, like, say, because some of the Den Hertogs were still at home, but they were working there.
This is totally different, dude.
Yeah.
And they were younger, and this guy, like, he was going nowhere.
Yeah. Police then pieced together a timeline of Madsen's movements on the night of the shootings. They spoke with Walter Madsen's brother John and sister-in-law Yvonne, who lived in Richmond. At around 11:30 p.m. on the night of the shooting, Yvonne heard a vehicle outside and looked out the window. She saw her brother-in-law, Walter, exit a strange truck, a green and black Ford pickup. She watched as Walter unloaded some things from the back of the truck. One of the items later proved to be a rifle verified by John, and the other was a green bicycle like the one spotted by witnesses on the afternoon before the murders. Walter left in the truck without coming inside. Yvonne didn't believe he'd seen her watching him. He returned on foot at around 12:30 a.m. to spend the night. Then Walter told his brother he had done, quote, something crazy. A cab driver later confirmed having picked up Walter from near Pacific Center, where Ed Den Hertog's truck was later discovered, and then the cabbie dropped Walter off in Richmond, close to his brother's place. Walter was gone the following day when John discovered the rifle outside in the carport. He called Walter to return and pick it up, which he did later. Searching the Madsen home after Walter's arrest revealed some more spent shells matching those found in Ed Den Hertog's truck, hidden in a basement heating duct in Walter's suite. At the same time, investigators discovered another part of the blue nylon tent in a dirt crawl space. This matched what had already been found earlier in Ed's stolen pickup truck. Walter Murray Madsen's prints matched those taken from Ed's truck. There was more than enough to arrest him and charge him. There were other outstanding questions. Where was the gun he used? Why had he done it? And most importantly, what had become of Leola Guliker? Walter Madsen's cousin, RCMP Corporal Alan Ellard, and his brother John played a large part in obtaining a confession from Walter once he was in police custody. Walter Madsen admitted to shooting Ed Den Hertog, Ed's brother John, Bert Menger, and Leola Guliker. He then dragged them all into the river and watched as they were washed away by the current. His story and motive for the shooting were wild. He cooked up a plan to kidnap James Sinclair, a prominent Canadian politician and businessman known for his role as the Minister of Fisheries in the federal cabinet under Prime Minister Louis St. Laurent. Born in 1908 in Scotland, Sinclair immigrated to Canada as a child. He served as a member of Parliament for the Capilano riding in BC from 1940 to 1958. Beyond politics, Sinclair was the maternal grandfather of our current Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. He was known for his work in developing Canada's fishing industry and influence on Canadian public life during the mid-20th century. The Sinclair Centre, a shopping complex in downtown Vancouver, is named after him. Walter Madsen said in his written statement that he wanted to lay in wait for a decent vehicle to steal, kill its occupants, and then use it in his kidnap scheme. The kids were just collateral damage to Walter Madsen.
This is so terrible. It's it's not that any reason that would be given that would be good enough for killing these kids, right? But to plan to murder someone for their car as opposed to stealing one is so deeply depraved. And then your opportunity is a bunch of kids and you kill them all. It's just so incomprehensible. This is so incomprehensible, Mike. This one blows me away. I don't know why, but I'm really feeling this one. It blows me away at how it makes no sense.
And the area, like I know the area. I was just out in Rosedale the other day at a friend's place, and it's a small, tiny little area. Like, I mean, they have one grocery store out there that, essentially handles the whole town, their whole little village. And so, yeah, the fact that this all happened, I know the shooter is from Chilliwack, which is a larger town just down the road.
Steve is from Chilliwack.
Steve is from Chilliwack, but it's
born there, yeah.
But it's one of those things where it happened in such a tiny little place where it had to have affected everybody in the community. Everyone.
Dude, in what was this, 77?
77 is when it occurred, yeah.
Imagine how small it was back then.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we saw, I talked about it already, 800 people attending the funeral. That, in a small place like that.
That's the whole town.
It's the whole town.
Yeah.
On the morning before the murders, Madsen drove his own van over to the park where he unloaded his .30-06, some ammunition, his blue tent, a sleeping bag, a compass, canned food, and what he called kidnap notes and gloves. After that, he hid all his gear under some bushes. Then he drove back to his parents' place in Chilliwack, which is close by. He returned to the island on his bike, and once there, he settled in, smoked, and polished off 3 bottles of beer. According to the Alberni Valley Times newspaper, Madsen wrote in part, quote, "I loaded my rifle and waited. What I wanted was a fast car or truck. I didn't want to leave any witnesses. I heard what sounded like a vehicle with a powerful engine. From my place in the bushes, I could hear occasional beer bottles being broken, hoots and hollers, what sounded like a good drunk. I knew what I had to do. If I was going to do it, now was the time. I decided to do it. I went to the road, and I saw 4 people sitting on the bank of the river. I was surprised to see 4 people. I thought there were only 2, at the most 3. I said, 'Hold it.' They turned around. In the few terrible seconds afterward, I killed all 4, stabbed them through the heart to make sure they were dead, and threw the bodies into the river." After driving off, the weight of what he'd just done hit Madsen like a ton of bricks. His statement continues, quote, "I was feeling terrible about what I had done. I could not go ahead with what I planned to do. It would turn into another bloodbath," end quote.
Squish, squish. You were feeling terrible. Then why the hell did you do it?
Right.
I don't buy this feeling terrible stuff.
What I noted about this particular statement as well is that he only saw 4 people. So he didn't see Ed Menger at all. He only saw the 4 people who he killed. I'm grateful that he didn't see Ed, because maybe he would have chased down Ed Menger, killed him, and then those people pulling up to help Ed as well.
This guy would have killed everyone.
Yeah.
Feeling terrible. Go just piss off.
Yeah, go shit in your hat. A tape-recorded conversation between John and Walter Madsen in the RCMP detachment gave a little more information into Walter's devious mind and the real reasons he abandoned his initial plan. Quote, "I still think the kidnap plan would have worked, but I could not go through with it. What would I do with a $2 million ransom? Where would I spend it? Just go bury it in the basement somewhere?" End quote. Madsen then led RCMP to Cultus Lake, where they recovered his .30-06 rifle, the murder weapon, which he disposed of there. After learning that Madsen had admitted to murdering Leola and putting her into the river, the Guliker family finally spoke out. John Guliker, Leola's dad, told the province newspaper, quote, "I just can't see her lying there in the river. I jump every time the phone rings," end quote. Leola's mom, Corey, said, quote, "At night or in the daytime, I think she'll walk in the door at any time. I can't believe she won't be coming home. Everything I see reminds me of her, especially the small things. We miss her so much," end quote. On hearing about the shootings for the first time, John Guliker said, quote, "It was like a knife going through me when I was told," end quote.
Doesn't that just hit you hard when you read this?
Yeah.
Whenever we do this show, I really try to put myself in place of the victims' families. Like, just for everyone who's listening, it's Mike could just write the script, and I could just read the script and do comments.
Yeah.
But what I try to do is really try to be in their shoes as much as I can, and it hurts. And I just, it hurts me just to try to put myself in their shoes. So I can't even imagine the reality of this, right? Mm-hmm. Imagine your kid or your nephew or your niece. My nephew's visiting me right now. He's 17. Like, I try to imagine him. It would be a totally unbearable weight. And I don't know how these families can carry this weight when this happens. I've never understood how you can go on. Look at this. I'm getting teary.
Yeah. Well, we see it in the support that they had from other community members.
Yeah, but you still got to carry it.
I'm not saying that it makes it any less, but they have good support, and they end up supporting each other. I read other things where family members from one family involved in this were ushers and other people at weddings involving the other family afterward. So it's like they came together after this in a way that humans do.
It's I've literally carried the weight of somebody on my shoulders, being a pallbearer a few times, of people that had died by suicide. And you feel it when you're carrying their body, right?
Yeah.
and it's just, I don't know how they could carry this physically or metaphorically, or emotionally, you know?
Yeah, we can never know unless it happens to us, and I pray it never does.
Yeah, I wish I could wave a magic wand and we had no more stories to tell, Mike.
Or just like weird stories about, UFOs and Sasquatch. Word of Walter Murray Madsen's arrest floored those who knew him as a mild-mannered and well-behaved young man. To and from his arraignment, Madsen was given a paper bag to put over his head to protect his identity from photographers. Dramatically, at the court appearance, Ed Menger, who'd already identified Madsen in a lineup as the shooter, again pointed at him across the crowded courtroom, identifying him as the man who'd killed his brother and 3 friends. Madsen pleaded not guilty to the 4 charges of first-degree murder. He was evaluated and found fit to face the charges at trial. People called for a reinstatement of the death penalty for the cold-hearted killer, especially after the details emerged at his trial in the spring of 1978. The only witness for the defense was a psychiatrist, which could mean only one thing. What do you think that is, Matthew?
Oh, the old chestnut, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
I was insane when I did it, even though I planned it all out, laid in waiting, and tried to hide the bodies.
Right. Oh, boy. That's right. Regardless of 3 other psychiatrists testifying for the Crown that Walter Murray Madsen was sane on the night of the murders, his defense team called Dr. James Tyhurst. According to the Red Deer Advocate, Tyhurst testified that Walter Murray Madsen's mental illness stemmed from his older sister's severe schizophrenia, which led him to violent and irrational behavior. So, it's her fault that he is the way he is. Tyhurst explained that Madsen's upbringing was further complicated by an alcoholic father and a high-strung, bad-tempered mother, which exacerbated the psychological damage from his childhood. According to Tyhurst, Madsen believes he has a, quote, special destiny to change things under the protection of a special force, and mentioned surviving 2 car crashes as evidence of his unique fate.
Me.
Yeah, what a turd.
There's a great Leonard Cohen song that says it's Father's Day and everybody's wounded. Yeah. And everyone likes to blame the mother. And it's just hilarious that that's what they're trying to do here.
Yeah, it's everybody else's fault other than Walter Murray Madsen. His sister's mental illness made him crazy? What?
Yeah.
I don't understand that. I really don't get that.
No.
I'm not, yeah.
That's like Michael's weirdness makes me weird.
Well, my weirdness makes me weird.
I love your weirdness.
No, thank you.
It's a good weirdness, dude.
Yeah. Madsen was significantly affected by his sister's mental illness and the way other children treated him because of it. So Tyhurst quoted Madsen as saying, he is resentful about the way she was treated and thinks society has ruined her.
Oh.
Madsen's parents believed he was cursed with bad luck, citing the death of a close friend's, a bone fracture that left him with a deformed arm, and his failure to obtain a pilot's license. Tyhurst added that Madsen felt there was no point in working. Oh, I guess not. There's no point in working because I couldn't get my pilot's license.
They all sound like winners. Seriously, this sounds like one weird family. And it's bad luck that he's the murderer. It was bad luck. Sorry he killed your children. It was just bad luck.
I really struggle with the families that rally around people accused of something, especially when there's so much evidence that they did it.
Yeah,
like Scott Peterson and Lacey Peterson. I know some people will disagree. Oh, he DNA on some stupid duct tape. His family has just rallied around him to the point where one sister-in-law became a lawyer so she could defend him. Like, come on. He did it.
He did it. And I think if families rally around a cold-blooded murderer, well, there's some... It
sort of makes sense why the person ended up like that.
So they're giving all these reasons of why he did it. Well, actually, the real reasons are He's living in a family that defends a cold-blooded murderer. It's ridiculous.
Instead of teaching responsibility for one's actions. My dad always said, if you ever end up in jail, don't bother calling. One of his favorite phrases was, you make your bed, you lie in it.
I once asked my mother, I think that the actual question, literally, like, you're going to make you laugh. I'm like, would you still love me if I was a male stripper in a go-go bar? I said that to my mom once when I was like 16. And she said, I will always love you, but if you ever hurt somebody, you're on your own.
Yeah.
That's what she said to me, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I think this was me testing to see if my mother would still love me if I told her I was gay. It was before I came out.
Oh,
right?
okay, I got you.
And she's like, I'll still love you unless you hurt or kill somebody intentionally, then you're on your own, is what she said to me.
Yeah. Well, we digress back to Walter Murray Madsen and his defense. The psychiatrist Tyhurst also described Madsen's plan to kidnap a wealthy businessman for a $2 million ransom as a, quote, confused, unrealistic, garbled, increasingly fantastic scheme. Thankfully, the jury wasn't buying it. They convicted Walter Murray Madsen on all 4 counts of first-degree murder in BC Supreme Court. On April 17, 1978, Justice J.G. Gould sentenced Madsen to 4 concurrent life terms with no possibility of parole for 25 years. Madsen's lawyer, Murray Young, said he would appeal the conviction and the sentence. The appeals failed. Just days after Madsen was convicted and sentenced, a passerby noticed something floating in the water off Point Grey near UBC. It was a young woman's body. She was plucked out of the water by a search and rescue hovercraft 90 meters west of the North Arm breakwater. The identification from clothing alone was difficult due to the decomposition of the garments. So dental records confirmed that this was Leola Guliker's body. She was more than 120 kilometers downstream from the crime scene, and it was just over 9 months later. It was difficult to determine her cause of death and whether there were bullet wounds in Leola's body, although there were wounds congruent with stab wounds in her chest. Leola's dad, John, told the Vancouver Sun the family had never given up hope. The police said all along the file would never be closed. In a way, we always hoped they'd find her. John Guliker told the Chilliwack Press, we're thankful they found her.
That poor family. And it always gets to me, Mike, when people are reduced to the point where they're thankful that they found their child's body.
Yeah.
No, they're not thankful for having... they've lost the ability to be thankful that she'd found someone to love, or thankful that she graduated, or thankful that she got her first job, or gave them grandchildren, or started her own company. They're reduced to be thankful that her body was found. How
her decomposed body was found. Yeah.
How sad is that? That's the only thing they are thankful for anymore, other than memories.
Yep.
That's just sad. I mean, I get it. You want your loved one's body back, but nobody should be in a situation where they're
where that's the option. Yeah.
That's what makes you thankful.
Leola was buried on April 26, 1978. On June 21st, 1996, after 18 years behind bars, the body of then 42-year-old Walter Murray Madsen was found hanging from a bedsheet tied to the ventilation system in his cell at the Regional Psychiatric Center at Matsqui Institution. There had not been any indication that Madsen had been planning to die by suicide. However, a spokesperson, the Psych Center's executive director, Gerwin Mills, said that Madsen had suffered from mental illness for a long time before his death. Despite some notoriety in the institution for being the Rosedale killer, Madsen had been an unremarkable inmate.
Oh, he's an unremarkable human being.
So life went on painfully for the 3 families whose children were slain. On a more upbeat note, the Den Hertog family continued to grow after the deaths, all 3 of them did, of their 2 boys, Ed and John, and at his death, Bernie Hertog, their dad, was Opa to 72 grandchildren and Great Opa to 97 great-grandchildren. What a legacy. Holy smokes.
I bet, Mike, that you and I have been walking down the street or in a store with one of these family members.
It's a small town. Yeah, Vancouver is a small area.
Right?
Really.
Like, I bet we've passed some of these people by.
Of course we have. Of course we have.
That's like, what's 72 plus 97? I can't math.
Yeah, right. There's
like
a lot.
That's
one of them probably served me at the store in Rosedale when I was out there, or I was in the room with them.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Crazy. And that's it for Dark Poutine episode 333, Summer Cut Short, the 1977 Rosedale Murders.
That's right. It's time for voicemails. You can leave us a message at 1-877-327-5786 or 1-877-DARK-PTN. We'd love to hear from you. Let's see who called us this week.
Let's take a listen to our first voicemail.
Hi there, my name's Trisha, and I'm calling from St. Thomas, Ontario. Long-time listener. I'm still actually working through some of the episodes I haven't watched. But I just want to give you guys some credit. You guys are always right down to earth. You say your opinion, you say it how it is, and if you don't like it, go take a shit in your hat. That's how it should be. We should be able to have our opinions. We should be able to tell stories that make us uncomfortable and bring the awareness to what's going on in the world, and I feel like you two are really down to earth and get that across. And I just listened to your most recent podcast, and I was completely unaware that you're spending your own money to continue the podcast. I just assumed all these true crime podcasts now are making money, and I had no idea, and I'm not a patron, I'm not going to lie. So, yeah, if there's something more we could do to keep the podcast going, that would be awesome. I don't even know how to become a patron, I'm not going to lie to you. I listen to so many podcasts, I just kind of didn't know the details behind it. So yeah, if you guys try to do something more or something that we could all help, it'd be nice to know, other than I guess becoming a patron. Anyways, I hope you guys have a great day and go take a shit in your hat.
So here's the thing. The best thing that somebody can do to help us out is to tell their friends that this is a great podcast and they need to listen. Force them to listen to it. Download it again. Listen to it again. It's the best way, the absolute best way you can help is to make sure other people are listening. That's the absolute 100% best way.
That is the best way. Now, at the end of the show, Mike will talk about how to be a Patreon or send money. Yeah, it's just there's algorithms and stuff, and it's been tough for Mike.
It's not even algorithms. There's weird shit that's going on behind the scenes. To pull the curtain back a little bit, changes at both Apple and Spotify are seeing podcasters getting paid less. So if you don't have as many downloads as a gigantic show, you are feeling a lot of pain right now, as we are. Anyway, let's listen to our next voicemail.
Hey guys, this is Deb, and I'm from North Carolina, so I'm a little further south from you guys. I am a 5-year listener of your show, before the wonderful Matthew and Steve, and I just want you all three to know, Mike, Matthew, and Steve, that I really do appreciate the podcast. I look forward to it every Monday morning when it hits. I work a job, it's an office job. I'm allowed to listen to podcasts and music all day, and it's just not a Monday unless I get Dark Poutine in. So you guys always do such a professional job, such a thorough job. And long story short, I'm just a big fan. I recently started contributing to the show. Like today, I signed up to contribute. But there is a case that I wanted to talk to you guys about, the murder of Shirley Duguay. I think I pronounced that right, Duguay. She was from Prince Edward Island. And I remember seeing a Forensic Files, love that show, about that and her cat. So, or not her cat, a cat that helped solve the case. So I don't know if you guys have covered it. I think I did a search to see if you guys have covered it. If you have, if you'll just point me in the right direction so I can find it and listen to it. But anyway, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Again, you're doing a wonderful job. I'm not going to tell you to go do that in your hat because I'm Southern and we don't do that. But we say bless your heart when we mean F you. So I'm not even going to say that to you guys. But anyway, I hope you guys are having a great day. Thanks again for the great podcast. I really look forward to it every week. I will talk with you later. Take care. Bye.
No.
Oh.
Thanks.
Oh, I
thanks so
love
much.
Deb.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was looking.
And her name is Deb Plummer. Deb Plummer, who is going to be one of our new patrons. So
Yay! So
Yeah.
I think Deb Plummer. I think she can listen to the show at work because she's the CEO of the Bank of America.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, that I looked it up while we were listening to her.
Okay, that's
and
good.
I was looking up like what big companies are in North Carolina. So, Deb, you're the CEO of Bank of America. If you're not, walk in there and tell them you are and say that I said so.
And we have covered Shirley Duguay, her case, in episode 73, Deb. So have a look back at episode 73 and you'll hear that case. That's it for this week's voicemails. Again, you can leave us one at 1-877-327-5786 or 1-877-DARK-PTN. We'd love to hear from you, even if it is just to say hi and to tell us to go shit in our hats. If you're stumped for what to chat with us about, a quick story is welcome. All right. Well, people are really stepping up as far as Patreon and donut money donors go. Holy crap.
Good. Keep it coming, peeps.
I cry poor a little bit, and people really care.
You still are.
Yeah, I'm worried is what it is. It's more like, oh boy, if things don't change, it ain't good.
Don't plan the parade yet.
Yeah, don't plan the parade. Yeah, or the funeral. Just yet. So yeah, we've already mentioned that Deb Plummer is a new patron, and we have a few others. So first up, after Deb Plummer, of course, we have someone whose name is just Catherine. Catherine. And I don't know where Catherine's from or what she does, Matthew.
She's from Aragon.
Aragon?
Catherine
of Aragon.
It took you a second there, didn't it?
Oh, yeah, there's a Rick Wakeman song, I think, about Catherine of Aragon, if I remember correctly. Rick Wakeman was the keyboard player in Yes.
Justin, my husband, is fascinated with Catherine of Aragon.
Oh, really?
It's one of his favorite historical characters. You know that whole, like, who would you have for dinner? His top of his list of Catherine of Aragon.
I think it would be Joan of Arc for me. I would like to have a conversation if I could speak French.
Did you see?
Like to have a conversation with her.
Do you know that golden statue of Joan of Arc in Paris? Did you see that when you were drunk 16-year-old in Paris?
No, I did not.
Okay. It's one of my favorite statues.
I'll have to see it the next time I'm there.
Yeah.
So she's Catherine of Aragon, so we know what she does, whatever Catherine of Aragon does.
Catherine of Aragon is her own woman, and she's strong, and she's, I think, one of those strong female historical figures that...
Oh, well, there you go.
All of us should look up to. So thank you, Catherine of Aragon.
Next up, we have Hazel Clare. Hazel Clare, and I don't know what Hazel does or where she's from either.
I think Hazel Clare is a pastry chef.
Hazel Clare is a pastry chef.
Doesn't Hazel Clare sound like a yummy pastry?
Sure.
I would like
Hazel Eclair.
I'd like to have one Hazel Clare, please.
One Hazel Eclair. So it's like hazelnut filling in an eclair. Oh my God, that would be good.
Hazel is delicious, and you're extra delicious for sending some money. Thank you,
there
Hazel.
You go. And where is she?
Pastry chef.
Yeah, where?
In Kennebunkport, Maine.
Oh, she's in Maine. That's nice. Next, we have Kat Eldridge. I don't know where Kat's from and what she does for a living, Matthew. You're on the hot seat this week.
Kat is from London in the UK.
Okay.
And she's a professor at the London School of Economics.
Mm-hmm. And does she teach about the Eldritch Horror?
Nope, she teaches economics.
Oh, okay. Well, there could be some horror there. Well, there you go. That sounds nice. Next, we have some donut money donors. Belinda Wallace says, to help keep the podcast going from a long-time listener. I don't know where Belinda's from or what she does, Matthew.
She's from Wallaceburg, and she's the mayor.
Mayor of Wallaceburg. Where is Wallaceburg exactly?
Somewhere in Ontario.
Oh, Wallaceburg, Ontario.
I don't know. I just made that up.
Next, from Cleethorpes in the UK, we have Steve Heaton. Steve Heaton. So I don't know where Cleethorpes is. Do you know? Are you aware of that town, Matthew?
I think it's in Lincolnshire.
Okay.
I think it's near Grimsby, if I'm not.
Northeast Lincolnshire, yes.
Is it? Okay, so
like.
so it's near Grimsby. Yeah.
Yep, it's close to Grimsby. It's right on the coast there.
Yeah.
So what do you think Steve Heaton does there in Cleethorpes?
I think he travels down to Thorpe Park. I have no idea if that's even close to Cleethorpes. And he runs the bumper car. He's a bumper car guy.
Oh, he runs the bumper car.
Yeah, which is actually, if I'm honest with you, one of my fantasy jobs. Yeah, I would love to like set it up and watch people like get their anger out bashing into each other.
Oh, no.
I think it's a good way of letting off steam. I was always really super aggressive in bumper cars. I was one of those people that, like, instead of just going around, wanted to smash into people as hard as I could.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Does that say something about me?
Yes.
Okay.
Next, we have Jennifer Wayland Stevenson.
Wow.
And she says, I truly love your show. I really enjoy the banter between you and Matthew, and I hope to hear much more. Well, thank you, Jennifer. And I, again, don't know where she's from or what she does.
Okay, just give me 1 second. You can cut this in, okay?
Of course I have to.
I want to figure out where she's from. Bear with me. Okay. Jennifer is from Winston-Salem.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
What does she do there, Matthew?
She's a bit of a pariah at Winston-Salem because she's a non-smoking advocate.
A non-smoking advocate.
Yeah. So she's coming from a place where one of the hometowns of tobacco companies, and she's a non-smoking advocate.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Well, you got to be a non-smoking advocate sometimes.
Jennifer's always been a bit of a rebel. No, I was talking to one of her teachers.
Okay.
Yeah, and she was a rebellious youngster.
Well, there you go.
I've heard the stories, Jennifer.
Yeah,
I've heard the stories. I'm not going to say any of them on the show.
Okay. Next we have Dallas Barnes, and Dallas says, love the show. I don't know where Dallas is from, and I don't think that it is Dallas, Texas.
First of all, Dallas Barnes is such a good name.
Yes, right?
Yeah. And I'm running out of places. So there's this lovely village kind of within London called Barnes.
Right.
I actually went to a marriage, a couples counselor in Barnes with my ex. Obviously, the couples counselor didn't do a very good job. So
it's an ex, so it didn't.
We learned to let go with hate.
Oh, no.
So Dallas works in Barnes at the Sun Pub. It's right. I think it's called the Sun Pub. It's right on this little pond. It's a lovely little place. So that's where Dallas works. Runs a pub in suburban London.
Well, there you have it.
I really hope that's Dallas's real name. It's such a good name.
It is a good name. Next we have Carla Carlucci. And Carla is from Gloucester, Ontario. Matthew, I pronounced it correctly, didn't I? I did. Yeah, that's a tough one for some people, like Worcestershire sauce.
Oh,
yeah, Gloucester.
My husband, my nephew asked for Worcester sauce at the table.
Oh no!
My husband's like literally went, "You cannot call it that."
Oh no!
He's like, "You have an uncle who's British, and you have effectively Ray is his grandfather who's British as well. It's like, so you have got to learn this the right way." And sat there and taught him and wouldn't give it to him until he said it correctly.
Say it correctly. Say it correctly. Yeah. So, what do you think Carla Carlucci does there in Gloucester, Ontario, Matthew?
She has to run a restaurant called Carlucci's, an Italian restaurant.
Is there one?
I don't know, but if there isn't, I bet Carla would do a fantastic job running one.
Well, there you go.
No, I've heard she's a great cook.
Interesting.
Carla. Yeah, she is.
Sometimes I Google the people, like their names, and try and guess where they, if I'm looking at the right person, and often you are really way off when it comes to what they do, if that's the right person that I'm looking at. But anyway, yeah, it's interesting, and I don't want to call them out and say this is what I know they do, because
it could be the wrong person.
It could be totally the wrong person. Anyway, yeah, Google is scary sometimes. But thank you so much, Carla. We really, 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 really appreciate your donation and that of everybody who took the time this week, because
this is so
helpful. I don't want to cry poor anymore. I want the show to be downloaded a lot more. I really do.
It's not. I want to say embarrassing. It's not, because we're working hard on this, and it's and it's so what's annoying, Mike, is it's actually a popular show, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's so hard to make ends meet with a podcast.
Well, it certainly is lately. Oh well. Thanks to all our patrons and Donut Money donors, past and present, for your generosity. It helps to keep the show going. You can become a patron of Dark Poutine at patreon.com/darkpoutine. For a one-time donation, you can send us donut money via PayPal using our email address, darkpoutinepodcast@gmail.com. If you don't already subscribe to the show, it would mean a lot if you did. You can easily find Dark Poutine on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. If you haven't gotten yours yet, my book, Murder, Madness, and Mayhem, is available to order via a link on the Dark Poutine website. And speaking of darkpoutine.com, please check it out for show notes and other cool stuff. We'd appreciate it if you took the time to give Dark Poutine a like or a follow on Facebook and Instagram. Most importantly, thank you for listening, and tell your friends about us. Word of mouth is a powerful thing. And that's it for this episode of Dark Poutine. And so until next time, don't forget to be a good egg and not a bad apple.
I want to give more people ridiculous jobs.
Yeah, so become patrons or donut money donors, and you'll have.
It's actually the most fun part. I love that. I love doing that part of the shows.
It is fun. So anyway,
bye.
See you later, folks.